supposed to be a historian. I don't take any notes. Like, what? Hello, everyone. Good morning. It's nice to have you here. I hope you're having a good morning, evening, afternoon, wee hours of the night, whatever time it may be. Thanks for clicking and viewing this video. My name is Madeline with Knit with Madeline, big shock. And I just want to say thank you and hello to some of the new viewers that this channel has gained since the last podcast. A big thank you to Rachel from Night Sky Knitting for her very lovely, kind, and sweet shout out for me and my channel. I really appreciate it, and I'm so glad that some people from her community have come over here, and I've been trying my best to reply to comments promptly. I'm not really great with prompt replies to things in general in any part of my life, but I also just want to take time on here to say thank you so much for all of your kind comments. They're incredibly helpful and informative when it comes, to answering things like knitting questions. And then on top of that, it's just so fun to hear where everybody's from, how long they've been knitting, things like that. So I'm so happy to be able to start my little tiny community, and I'm so happy to have each and every one of you be a part of it. So before I sound too sappy and weird, I don't really know how to do these things. I just want to say thank you so much. And yeah, we'll just hop right into the podcast. Before we begin, I want to say I know my hair is a little messy, but the first podcast video, editing it, I was like, is that what my hair looks like? So I dyed it. So now it's all one color. So that's positive, moving in the right direction. This podcast will be very similar to the previous one, and like all of the others that we see on YouTube all the time. I'll go ahead and talk about finished objects, then move into whips, then acquisitions. I do have a yarn acquisition. It's only 2 different kinds of yarn, so that won't be too major, but I will talk about my plans for that yarn. And then the one I really want to talk about is I bought a lot of Sari Nordlund patterns. So I'll go ahead and share this with you because it's definitely what I'm going to be knitting on next once I get my hands on some special yarn. And then the final thing I'll talk about, I guess, is kind of like a live update, sort of, kind of, not really. I'm going to be talking about some future plans, which will lead to an exciting video for the channel, I hope, fingers crossed, where I will be traveling somewhere different and also buying yarn for some of the patterns that I will be sharing with you today. So go ahead and either tune in to the end or look in the description where I have timestamps linked and just skip right to it if you're interested. And then on that note, I would like to say, and I will say it once and not anymore, any pattern, yarn, anything that is linkable that I will talk about in this video will all be linked in the description, so please check it out. And one final note, introduction, that I want to say, and that I feel remiss not to mention, even though I feel a little bit, not out of place, but there's not much I can do in my, tiny corner of YouTube, sitting in front of my window in Serbia talking about it, but I do want to say that my mind is definitely with Ukrainians and the people in Ukraine and the war that is going on right now at the moment. It's awful. It's horrible to think about. Issues relating to war are very close and very personal to me. And a lot of the rhetoric that's being thrown around by Putin and Russia is just unthinkable. And it's just truly a shame what's going on. And even though there's not much I can do, we all can donate if we can, if we have the financial resources to do that. I will try to link some donation places below. I don't know many. I'm generally not so great with that. One thing I do know of is that today, so I'll try to get this video out today, Knitting for Olive is donating all of the money from purchases from Saturday, February 25th, I believe, to the organization that they're donating to. I think it's UNICEF or something like that, but I will definitely link that below. And if you were ever interested in buying Knitting for Olive yarn, today would definitely be the day. I think I might. I feel badly because I don't need more yarn, but also I want more yarn, and if I can also help support the people in Ukraine, it's like a win-win situation. So basically all I wanted to say is that I recognize what's going on in the world. I hope that this podcast brings you a little bit of joy and happiness and slight distraction from the world that we live in, because sometimes we all need that. And I know that knitting is a good way to cope with some of these stressors and anxieties And I hope that it is doing it for you, and that while you're knitting, to be mindful and brings a little bit of peace to you in your life, and that you can help share that peace with other people around you and in your community and with the communities in Ukraine if you are able. So that's my little PSA. So to hop right into it, I'm gonna start with finished objects. I am going to add 2 things into my finished objects that I've already talked about because I blocked. I did blocking. I blocked. And I know the colors get so blown out and crazy, but I want to say to all of the knitters out there who say that you need to block your things and it's really important and you should and you absolutely have to, yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, it made an incredible difference. I knew that this section here would like really need the blocking because now you can actually see the diamonds. But I mean, just the rest of the shawl, I mean, it just got extra beautiful, and it's so crisp. And when I was blocking it, I mean, it was already so big, and this grew so incredibly much. It's ridiculous. Now, I haven't done anything with all my little bitty ends and whatnot, but I'm obsessed. And as every day goes by, I'm liking the color like little bits and little bits more, but I've been using it just kind of as a blanket in my house, just like this, and my partner's been using it too, and it's so cute to see him wear it. He looks really good in it, I think. But it really, I mean, I love it. I don't really know how to wear it that well quite yet, but I do. I try every day to wear it because it just makes me so happy. And wow, blocking. I must say, if you have a project and you're waiting to block it and you really don't want to, do it. Another project that I blocked that I didn't bring out here to show because it got really big is the Aosta sweater. I'll go ahead and post a photo of me wearing it, and then if I can, I'll also insert a picture of it blocked because it grew quite a bit, and that is my fault because I used a yarn different than what was recommended in the pattern. And I didn't block my gauge swatch. I just like called it a day and started knitting with it once I got the gauge and figured I'll just go up in size. And it grew so much, particularly in the arms. The arms got very long and very big. However, after wearing it out, after blocking it, I still really like it. It's just like a very oversized sweater. I think it looks really good with jeans. It's very warm, very soft. The mohair is very pilly, but I'll definitely bring that into the next episode to go ahead and show you, give you an update after I wear it for a bit longer. There's a woman with a big bag of balloons. Somebody is having a party. All right, so that's that for the blocked items. So now we can move into sort of the more traditional finished objects. Oh, I have you set up against a curtain because I thought it might soften the light a little bit, and I guess I disrupted it and it came into the frame. You need to stay out of my frame, curtain. So finished objects for this month. I'm really excited about them. The first is, and I showed you this as a whip in my last podcast, it's the Laulu shawl by Sari Nordlund. It's so incredibly beautiful. It's so incredibly beautiful. So this is my first time doing lace really, and my first time doing cables really, and I can't have enough, seriously. As if you watched my previous video about sweaters I want to knit, garments I want to knit to be more specific, I was talking about how textured knits really seem up my alley this year, or the beginning of this year, I guess. And I think this is really hook, line, and sinker. I was knitting it, it's so much fun. The way cables knit up, it's just like magic. And I really enjoyed it. So a bit about the details. Let me go to the page in my handy dandy knitting book. Oh great, I didn't write anything down. Well, I talked about it at length in my first podcast. I know I knitted it with Claudia Concepts yarn, and it was their cashmere wool, but it was 70% virgin wool, 30% cashmere, and I believe the color was 207. It didn't have a name, but it's just like a very classic olive green. Now the pattern, let's do this. The pattern calls for a fingering weight yarn and a mohair, which I follow the hashtag on Instagram, which is a great tip if you want to see like really cool color combinations for things that you want to knit or have knit already. But the pattern says, oh, let me go back to that thought that I literally just said. And people have been knitting it with these beautiful yarn combinations, which is it's cemented in my mind that I will be knitting another one in a fingering and a mohair. And I will talk about an exciting time for me to get that yarn at the end of this episode. So if you want to hear some really fun and exciting things, you should watch till the end, or you can just skip forward because I'll put the timestamps in the description below. But think, instead of knitting it with a fingering and a mohair, because mohair is kind of hard to get around Serbia, there are some brands, but they're not great, and they're like small balls, and I kind of resolved to myself that if I buy mohair and spend the money on it, I want to get like indie dyed or like luxury brand with like fun patterns and things like that, and that can't just really be done here at the moment, so I didn't, and instead I used a DK weight in the cashmere, in the cashmere yarn. I was like, what am I saying? I'm so tired. But yeah, it's just a beautiful triangle shaped shawl, or it's like a kerchief. It's very small. It's charted. I was really proud of myself. I figured out how to read, that's the back. I figured out how to read charts for this. You can also make it longer and wider by doing this chart twice, which I think if I have the yarn, I will do that. Because the only issue I have with this is it's kind of hard for me to wear because I've never really been a scarf gal ever. And I've been trying to wear this, and it's just like I've been wearing it mostly like this, tied like that, and then I've also been wearing it like this. But as I mentioned to you all, I really wanted to wear it as my babushka moment, and I think my head is too big or something, because the way Sari does it in the photo, it's like wrapped around her neck and tied. But I'm not certain I can do that, and then I just look a little silly. But I will figure it out and look at this babushka moment. Ah, the angels sing from heaven. So yeah, I would highly, highly recommend this pattern, especially for somebody who is just starting out to cables and lace. I think it's great. I would really recommend this yarn. It's beautiful, it smells good, it's soft. It grew so much in blocking and it really opened up. So again, another testament, and I know with cables it's a bit more obvious, but really strong testament to blocking. Which brings me back just one moment to the blocking topic. There are so many people on Instagram who talk about the importance of blocking, which is great, on Instagram, YouTube, etc. What nobody tells you is that it's stinky. And I guess maybe that's something you should just assume, because hello, it's like wet animal fiber, but my Aosta sweater was stinky, like really stinky, to the point where my partner came in and he was like, ew, like what is that smell? It smells to a lesser degree, like not as strongly, but in the same vein as like wet dog. And I had to like Google it to make sure that something didn't go wrong. And no, that's just how it smells, which is totally fine. I don't think it's that bad, to be totally honest. It's like not a big deal, but it was surprising. And so I think that that is something that should be shared on the internet. And I forgot to mention that this was knit on a needle size US 6, which I think is, yep, a 4mm needle. I forgot to mention it. I wanted to say a 6, but then I didn't trust myself, and I should have trusted myself because I was right. But this is a testament to myself that I'm already failing on my note taking, partly because I casted this on, I knitted it so quickly in like a week, and I was just so excited to have it, and I didn't take any notes because I loved it. But yeah, US size needle 6, DK weight cashmere yarn, beautiful, lovely, in the books, will knit again, absolutely, big fan. This would be a good gift knit, now that I think about it, for someone that you know likes scarves or like little ties, small things, again, you can make it bigger. It goes by really quickly and it's really beautiful, and I think people would be really impressed. And I had 3 balls of this cashmere yarn. I think each was 25 grams, and I used 2 and just under a half. So it'd be a good thing to get like nice yarn to knit up for somebody and not be too expensive. Like I think I spent $30 maybe on all that yarn, which is a really good price for a cashmere kerchief. Next finished object that I'm going to talk about is a good segue into my whips, because I have a little bit of a sad tale to spin for you. But before we get into the sadness, let's talk about the happy and exciting things. Oh, it's so beautiful. This is the Ripple Bralette by Jessie Mae Designs. I chose to knit this because I had this beautiful hedgehog fibers yarn. The color is Liebling in their sock yarn. This is not doing it any justice whatsoever. I have a photo of the actual skein in my previous podcast, but it's like a white yarn, and it has these sort of swaths of this beautiful like lilac periwinkle, and then it has flecks of orange, pink, yellow, and blue, which come together to create these really nice darker, almost brown purple looking speckles, and it's just really beautiful. The only issue was with this yarn that I only had 1 skein of it, and I thought I'm really light colored and I didn't know what this would look like around my face, so I didn't want to make a hat. I also don't wear hats really because I don't like them. I don't. And I didn't want to make them into socks because it's just so beautiful. So I realized that I could make this bralette with 1 skein of yarn. It used under 400 meters, which is what I had. So that was that. And then also I'm reading my notes because I write down why, and I want to make sure that I'm being accurate. So I also, as I mentioned before, I wear sports bras like every day, and I want to move away from that. I want to have something more luxurious, nice, and then I also want to add sort of my nice PJ collection because I have one thing and it's kind of falling apart. So I knit this, and I love it. It's a great pattern. It's really beautiful, and she gives you a lot of details about how you can amend the pattern to fit your body better. And obviously she is a very size inclusive brand, and I know that everybody already knows about her. I mean, she's, as Rachel from the Night Sky Knitting podcast said, because she's actually knitting one of these right now, everybody knows who Jessie Mae is. She's very incredibly famous, and for a good reason, because she makes beautiful, very classic, but modern wearable patterns. So I'll give a bit more details about this yarn in case you didn't watch the first podcast and don't care to. It's 90% superwash merino and 10% nylon, 400 meters for 100 grams. The projected amount for the pattern was 315 to 375 yards. I think I used just about that amount, or actually less, because I have a good amount left. Where is it? I think I have it in my We Are Knitters bag, which is so cute. It's Don't Talk to Me, I'm Counting, and I have a big thing in here which I'm sad to talk about, but we will in a moment. Here it is. I have this much left. So the ball, I think, was probably about that size to begin with. I don't have a scale here. I'm living in a foreign country, but I have this much left, which brings me to sort of the sadder part about this. I guess I'll say one more thing before I talk about the sadder part. I was really careful with my stitch count, because that's what I learned from this shawl, is that you need to be mindful of your stitch count, because it can really ruin an entire pattern. And I really was. But one thing that was strange is when I was binding off this back side and the sides for the back, obviously I'm not going to talk about it in detail because it is a paid for pattern. I had way more stitches on this side, and I was worried that it would make a really noticeable difference, but it doesn't when you're wearing it. But it was just something that was strange because I was really careful that like when I separated the front and back that I had the right amount. I was really careful when I cast it on. The front worked out. I had exactly the right stitches for the front, which by the way, I love it. I just love how this ribbing carries along the edge. It's just a really thoughtful design and I couldn't recommend it enough. That being said, I'm not going to try it on for you. Oh, the yarn is so beautiful. I'm not going to try it on for you because it's a little scandalous because I'm a very big chested woman, if you will. And because of that, I don't think it fits me very well. It's a little short on the body, which means that it doesn't really hold in the girls very much. And it feels a little short in the back. And how do I say this without being crude? The sisters just kind of chill as if I was wearing nothing, and then that just goes like right over them and like kind of covers the bottom just barely. Like it would fit, it just doesn't fit in the way that I imagined it to, and the way I imagined it was the most comfortable fit. And I know that I can fix it. Part of why I made it the length, I knit it to pattern, like all the measurements that she gave. Obviously that's no fault to Jessie Mae. Everybody has very different bodies, especially in that area. I have a very narrow waist and large chest, so it's, I don't know. This was kind of a tester for me to understand the fit that I need. And on top of that, I was worried I wasn't gonna have enough yarn if I made a lot of adjustments to it. So what I think I'm going to do is and the problem is that my issue is in this bottom portion, it needs to be longer. So I have no idea, I wish I could just pick up these stitches and knit it down. But I don't know if that's possible. So if you know if that's possible, let me know. Another thing I was seeing is that maybe I could cut off the band and then knit a chunk and then like graft it together. I don't know. I was looking at all these crazy things for me to do. I just need to lengthen it, and I need to lengthen it by quite a bit. And to make that happen and to make sure I have enough yarn and to give me a little bit more support like I imagined in my head, I think I might knit one size down. So one size down, make it much, much longer. If you have any tips about how to make something longer that you knit from the bottom up, I would really so appreciate them in the comments. Please let me know, please. Because I was really sad about that. I was so happy to finish it. I blocked it. I was so excited. It looked so good. The yarn is beautiful. And then I put it on and I was like trying to make it work, and it was just like wah, wah, wah. But something that has been sort of going around in the discourse of the knitting podcast is the idea that like we shouldn't be so sad to frog things. Obviously you put a lot of time and effort, but knitting isn't really super about the product. It's should be sort of a balance between the process and the product, and that you're knitting something to wear. And if it doesn't fit you, or you don't really like it, or there's something about it that really bothers you, it doesn't make sense to not take the time to undo it, even though it's your precious. I just watched The Lord of the Rings with my partner all the past 2 days, which I will let you know why, and I'll give a little life update bit at the end. But that is my only other finished object. So now we get to go into Whip City. I have quite a number of whips, and I'm gonna have more. So let's get into it. So let's talk about whips. To do that, I'm gonna take this off because it restricts some of my movement and it's very warm, but just one more time. Okay, now I'm kind of cold now that I've taken it off. It's hard being temperature challenged. So let's start with the newest whip and move backwards because there's logic to it, I promise. So let me grab it. I had a lot of the Mary Fine left over and one ball of the Touch Me Mohair from my Aosta sweater, both in the color salmon. So I was like, excuse me, fiber, what am I going to knit with it? Because I only had 4 balls and I think each of them are 120 meters. I don't know if this is like an Aran weight yarn, worsted, Aran, worsted, Aran, you know, one of those. I had 4 left. And so I was like, you know, I can't really knit like a garment because like a summer top out of like kind of like a thicker merino, I don't really know. So I was like, what can I do that would be fun and a good way to use up my yarn? So I decided to knit the Humlebi shawl by Fiber Tales. It's looking really good right now. Can you see? Obviously it's very scrunched up, but what drew me to this pattern are the little tiny cable bees. They're so cute. So I'm knitting it obviously with the yarn that I just mentioned, and then I'm knitting it on, oh, I just dropped some stitches, on US 7 needles, which is a 4.5 millimeter. I'm enjoying it. The one thing I will say is that I do not love the charts in the pattern. I find them very hard to follow, and so I haven't been following them. I've been following the written pattern, so it is written and charted, which is definitely double thumbs up in my book. But there's some parts in the chart where the boxes are grayed out and it says like, this is not a stitch, which is very confusing to me because there are stitches there. And so I think that's a deficiency on my part in being able to read the chart. So I don't necessarily want to put that on the designer at all, but it is something, it is my truth, so I'm sharing it. But the written instructions are great. One thing that I will say, oh, so as you can see, what I'm adding is, you can see this like stripe of the mohair. The way that the shawl is constructed is that you have this picot edge cast on, which, boy, did that take a long time, but the cable cast on gives this beautiful edge, and I really like the little picots. And part of the reason I decided to knit this shawl is I'm knitting the calla shawl for my mother. I'm gonna get the yarn later, which I will talk about. I'm really excited to knit it, but it looks really difficult, and it has a picot edge and it's cabled, and so I thought kind of dipping my feet into the picot world and a different kind of cable world, because I believe the bees are technically cables, would be really good. It's way to sort of work my way up to the calla shawl while using my leftover yarn. So the design, it's a triangle shawl. Here's the middle, and it has that beautiful decrease line through the middle. And then it has obviously the picot edge. I added the little mohair stripe, and then you get these garter triangles, a bee, and I'm just starting the lace flowers. I just need one more eyelet, and then I'm done with the border edge. And then the rest of the shawl is just garter, which is great. And that's another reason I chose this pattern, because I just wanted something that wasn't like I need to follow and cross out the pattern like line by line as I go. And I'm going to mix in stripes of the mohair. So I'm excited to let you know how that goes. I think it'll be a nice, pretty warm but light shawl because of the mohair. Again, this color looks so weird on camera most of the time. Final thing I want to talk about is that I made a mistake, and I don't really know where. So at first I thought I made a mistake. No, I really do think the mistake starts with these little garter triangles. I think I put them in the wrong place or something, because the bees are supposed to be in between the garter triangles, and then the flowers are supposed to line up with the tips of the garter triangles. And I've been knitting this at like 1 in the morning, like every night, like a person who's not focused on the things they should be doing. And I thought, I was like, okay, the bees are in the right spot, like for sure. And then I started knitting the flowers, and I was like, okay, the flowers are in the right spot for sure. But in the photos, they're offset. They're not like all stacked. And I realized that no, my bees are in the wrong place. However, I have decided to accept it as a design choice because I'm not going back, number one. And number two, I think it's kind of okay because all of my things line up. So you have the triangle, the bee, and the flower, and they all line up. And so while I think the offset look that's written in the pattern is objective, well, I guess it's my subjective, objective reality that in the pattern it looks better. I think since I don't just have, it's not random, like they're all aligned instead of like just looking very out of place, I think it will look okay. And it's my design choice, and I'm I'm freestyling it. So I will definitely update you what this looks like as I keep working on it. Hoping to get to the garter part today maybe, so that way I can, oh my God, I really need a longer cable. I just dropped the stitches again. So yeah, I'll definitely keep you updated. This is what it looks like all the time on my needles. So my next whip is exciting and it relates to my acquisitions, but I'm still gonna show it right now because I think it makes the most sense. I am knitting, I think, yeah, it is disconnected. I got my yarn in the mail, which I'll talk about in a moment, and I'm finally knitting my partner's sweater once again. So as I talked about, and another thing that I thought was so funny is that Rachel and I from the Night Sky Knitting podcast, how many times can I mention her podcast in one podcast? I should put a counter. I think that's like 3, the 3rd time or something. We're both knitting our partner's sweaters and both of them looked and were comically small. So we're both working on it. She gave me a really great tip to just block the sweater unfinished, a little spicy mid-project block to see how much it will grow. And I was really intending to do that. However, I realized I forgot what size needles I was knitting it on because it's been so long. So I made a little swatch, I blocked it, I used 2 different needle sizes, and I realized I was using US 7. So oh, that's another thing I mentioned, I believe. The shawl is knitting on US 7. I have 1 pair of US 7 needles. So I'm going back and forth as much as I can. But I knit a swatch and I blocked it. It looks great, super soft. And I realized from doing that, that when I block it, when I stretch it this way, obviously it gets a little bit more narrow, so I can get a good 2 to 3 centimeters of length without affecting the width too much. So I'm keeping that in mind while I knit it. And this is what I have so far. It looks a little crazy. So it's still really short on the body. Haven't quite gotten there yet. So let's talk about it. First, the yarn. I am knitting this with We Are Knitters, the baby alpaca yarn. It is 100% alpaca and it is incredibly soft, but boy is it expensive. The story behind this yarn, very briefly, is that I was going to knit my first sweater and it was supposed to be a bulky weight yarn, and for some reason I was misled by the internet and my lack of experience, and I thought that the baby alpaca would work. So I had my partner pick out the color because I'm horribly indecisive. He picked out the spotted gray colorway. It came in the mail. I took it out and I was like, not bulky. But it was so soft and luxurious that I was like, I can't return this. Like, I can make something out of this. And then it dawned on me, well, my partner picked out the color and now I have this yarn and nothing to do with it. So I'm just gonna knit him a sweater. So I started freestyling him a sweater. And it's just a raglan, and then it has like garter ridges. Every 4th row is a garter ridge, which I think will also lend to its stretchability. I started knitting it a while ago, and then school got very busy. I started knitting things for myself because I am a selfish knitter. And then we had to go home to prepare for leaving for Europe. And I was ferociously knitting on it while we were apart. And I was like, okay, and I was running out of yarn. I had like 4 balls to get left. I hadn't done the sleeves yet. And so I was like, okay, I'm binding off. And it's okay because it's really stretchy and it's baby alpaca and it will be okay. And then we finally were reunited and I put it on him and it is so short. So I was like, okay, we need more yarn, but now we're in Serbia and we can't get We Are Knitters yarn because they don't ship here. So that's really good. So instead, I went to the wool warehouse and I ordered, I have it, Drops Puna, which is their 100% alpaca yarn. It's slightly thinner, but I knitted a very small swatch that I unraveled. And it's fine with the US 7 needles. On the ball, it says to use 4mm US 6. But I got basically the gauge that I had with the We Are Knitters yarn, with this yarn. So I'm going with it. And the color is 5, color 5. It's just like a dark, slightly heathered gray. I like it a lot. It was a really good choice. In fact, I always thought gray is not really for me, but I think that this gray is really nice. The reason why I knit the little tiny swatch is I wanted to show my partner like the different ways I could join the yarns together, and he really liked the way it looked with this garter ridge showing. So that's what we decided to do. So to go chronological order, I started knitting this sleeve again, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, boy, that's a big sleeve for a person with not so big arms. And so I took measurements of his arms plural. I did the math based on my gauge swatch to figure out how many stitches there should be for the arm to fit snugly, since I've never really done like a snug fitting arm on anything. And I realized I had like 30 more stitches than I needed. And so I'm like, oh, so I started decreasing and I got to the number of stitches I needed, but then it had this weird shape. So he put it on and it was so baggy under his armpit. It looked crazy. So I put the stitches on some scrap yarn. I also put a lifeline in, which is the first time I've ever done that, right underneath where the yoke ended, so I could rip back in case I did the other arm and found that it looked better and wanted to rip back. So as it turns out, that is definitely the case. While we were watching all 3 of the Lord of the Rings movies, I was knitting this sleeve. I basically decreased really quickly right from the get-go to the number of stitches that I needed, which I believe was 54 to fit his arm properly. Then I started knitting down, and then I added this gray stripe, and then I knit 3 of these little boxies again. Then I added this gray stripe, which is 3 times the size of this one. Then I knitted 2 of these gray and then started joining in the last gray part, which will carry down all the way to the cuff, where I think I will do a corrugated rib in both of the colors if I have enough stitches, if I have enough yarn. So my intentions are to finish the sleeve, put right above the cuff on hold, go back over, rip back the sleeve, knit it, put the stitches on hold, rip back the binding to just right above the ribbing, knit it. If I can get away with just using the gray, I will just use the light gray. If I need to use the dark, I will use the dark. We'll figure that out. It'll be like a dip dye situation. And then I'll go back and knit the cuffs based on what remaining yarn that I have. I ripped back what I got further. I got to like here. I ripped back because I did the decreases for the forearm too quickly and it looked not good. It was kind of balloony and there were some holes. But I did have some holes in the decreases here, but I think that they're looking okay. Honestly, I don't think you're gonna notice. And one thing that's gonna be really frustrating is that my partner mentioned he's probably gonna wear it inside out because it does look really cool inside out, like really cool. It has all these like garter stripes basically, or reversed stockinette stripes, and then the colors come in very seamlessly. But that means like weaving in my ends and fixing like raglan holes and stuff is just gonna be an experience. So this is back on my needles. It's being worked on again. I'm really gonna try to finish it before we go on our little trip that I'm gonna talk about at the end of the episode. So hopefully, definitely by the next podcast, I should be able to show you the finished product and again, kind of talk a bit more in detail about the process, how many stitches I used, etc., etc., etc. So the final whip that I have that's going to take us into the acquisitions, it's kind of a sad story. So this is, it's big. This is the Yawn sweater. Oh my God, what happened here? What happened there? Nobody knows, and we'll show it this way. This is the Yawn crazy things are happening. This is the Yawn sweater. I don't know why all these ends are sticking out. What is going on? Oh, it's inside out, maybe. Should I flip it? Yeah, I probably should. Yep, that's better. Okay, this is the Yawn sweater. It is a test knit that I was doing for Colibri by Johanna. It is an all over twisted rib sweater knit out of bulky weight yarn. It has a very high and dramatic split hem, which I love. I will post some photos of me wearing it. I will say, so two things. Number one, because it was a test knit, the meterage requirements were not exactly correct, which has been fixed in the pattern. So if you are going to buy this pattern and knit it, don't worry about that. I was knitting it and I was getting this far on the sleeve, and I was about to do the very dramatic cuff, which folds up on itself and is very stylish and cute and nice, when I realized that I would not have enough yarn to finish both of the arms. And I had already ordered yarn for this sweater online with the drops yarn that I got for my partner's sweater, and it hadn't arrived for like a month. And so I went to the yarn store and I bought a whole nother sweater's quantity of this yarn, which is an acrylic wool blend that I talked about in my previous, oh no, I didn't. So I filmed a whole test knitting vlog, and I don't think I'm gonna upload it for the sheer reason that I'm not gonna finish, which is, slightly upsetting. I feel like I gave my word to a designer and I'm not finishing it. I will share my notes with the designer regarding some of the things with the body where there were some issues, and also the length. I was assigned to knit an extra large, and it's very, very long, like really long, like longer than the photos of the smaller sizes. And obviously the larger size is going to be bigger, but I really feel that larger sizes should at least mirror what the smaller sizes look like. And so I think you need to take those proportions into consideration, which I would definitely share with the designer. And all of, the technical issues in the pattern will be ironed out. And she's a great designer and really kind, and a lot of her sweater patterns are so beautiful. But in addition to not having the yarn to finish it, and not really being able to buy more, to be quite honest, I told myself that I wouldn't be knitting really any more bulky weight sweaters because I don't like the way they look on me. I thought this would be different because it's twisted rib, and so I thought it'd be a bit more form-fitting and a bit cuter. But since I'm knitting the extra large, and I think if I were to buy this pattern and knit it for myself, I would knit the large, it's just really big and not really in a flattering way, which again is no fault of the pattern. It's just that I'm knitting a size that's too big for me. And I love the raglan detail. I love the way it fits in the shoulders. The problem is the bottom on me. It's just too long, and since it's twisted rib, instead of like hugging me and stretching like ribbing usually does, it just kind of hangs stiff, and it's just not flattering on my body type. So again, I want to be really clear. I would definitely recommend this pattern if you're looking for a really interesting textured knit that is very thoughtfully constructed, especially for a raglan. I would definitely recommend this pattern. It should be coming out relatively soon. However, I put it on and I looked at myself in the mirror, and I had my partner look at it, and I was just like, I really like the idea of this sweater, but I think on my body, it's just not correct. And I told myself I wouldn't be knitting any more bulky weight sweaters because I love the look of a lighter yarn weight sweater, and I think it's just more flattering on me. And I have firmly resolved that unless there's a design that really blows my mind, I will not be knitting another sweater that is a larger yarn weight than the Mary Fine by Weird Knitters, which is like a worsted, I think. I just think that it's more wearable in my wardrobe and what I imagine my style to be, because I'm still kind of trying to figure it out. And so yeah, so I think I'm gonna frog this sweater, which is why I'm not gonna publish the vlog about the test knit, which is really sad because I filmed it and I was excited. But you know what, sometimes things don't go the way you imagined, and I think that that's okay. So I'm going to communicate to the designer all of the things in the pattern that I found and some of the changes I made to make it look a bit better. but there are also just some holes where the raglan are. But I mean, I love the way, besides not that part, but this part, I love the way that looks. I love the collar. I think it's so smart looking. But I know it looks so narrow, but it's not. It fits. It's just not really for me, I think, unfortunately. So I did a lot of knitting on this really fast because I was worried I wasn't going to finish it. And I don't know, I feel really conflicted about frogging it because I really like it when I look at it. It's like a piece of clothing that I really like. But again, with the same sort of feeling about the Ripple bralette. If we knit something and it doesn't fit us properly, or we know we're gonna wear it, there's really no use in just keeping something around for the sake of keeping it around. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to frog it, and I'm going to use this yarn to knit a cardigan, because I think while I don't like bulky weight sweaters necessarily for me, and I already have one that I made that I love, the Sable sweater by Well of Knits. If you want to see that, go check out my Instagram, Knit with Madeline. I do think that I could wear the heck out of a bulky weight cardigan. I think it's a bit more practical, and I think the fit is, I'm at least comfortable with it on my body. I used to wear a lot of bulky weight cardigans that I obviously bought at like Urban Outfitters in high school, and I think that I could make something very beautiful with it. So that is the plan for that frog, and create into a cardigan. And I have collected a couple of patterns and my favorites on Ravelry of some of the cardigans that I might make with it. And this is a really good segue into the acquisitions, because I finally got the yarn that I ordered for this sweater, way too late to knit this sweater in time for the test knit. And I had very similar plans for that yarn. So I'll go ahead and move into acquisitions. It'll be very quick since I already showed you the drops Puna that I got, and yep, and then after that we'll be almost done just talking about future and exciting things and a little life update. So for acquisitions, I finally got something from Wool Warehouse, and I got it in the organza bag because I don't have one, and I thought it'd be great to store some of my yarn in. So just to briefly recap, I got the drops Puna in this dark gray color. I got 6 balls of this for my partner's sweater. And then for the bulky weight sweater, I got Retreat by West Yorkshire Spinners. It was rear-sheared and spun in Britain, and it is in the color Soul. And it's like this really beautiful blue gray. It's very blue, undertoned in real life. I think it's just coming up like gray on here. But to contrast it with the Red Heart yarn I was using for the sweater, you can tell this is like a straight up silver gray, and you can see how like blue toned this is compared to it. And yeah, I'm excited to have it. I have 8 balls of it. It is 100 grams and 140 meters. It says it should be knit on US 10.5 needles or 6.5 millimeter. The Yawn sweater, which I didn't mention before, was knit on 7 millimeter needles. So I think it would have been okay. It's made of 100% blue-faced Carrie Hill yarn. And I really love this color. And with that sweater frogged and this, I think I have like 2,000 meters or like just under that of chunky weight yarn, which is a lot of chunky weight yarn for someone to have that doesn't want to knit roving chunky weight yarn anymore. Why did I do this to myself? We ask that every day. It does look really nice in the bag though. Look, it's like all lined up, all of my Retreat yarn. So I was watching Penrose Knits channel, her like knitting wrap up for the past year, and I know that she knit, I think the chunky Dahlia sweater out of Retreat yarn, that exact yarn, and I really like the way that looks. But again, I really think for that yarn, I'm going to cast on, I really want to cast it on today, but I know I shouldn't because I have things to do, but I want to cast it on today. The Ursa sweater that I talked about in my garment knitting plans. I think that's just a beautiful color for it. I think a very cropped chunky weight sweater will be perfect for me to wear with dresses, skirts, It's getting warmer here in Serbia. It's still like cold on some days, like 50 to 40 degrees and cloudy. And so I think wearing the Ursa sweater with a dress and some tights and some Doc Martens would be super cute and exactly warm enough for the weather. And I think it's just a good way to use that yarn. So, and I think I'll wear it a lot. I really wanted to make a cardigan out of it, but I think I could probably even get out 2 Ursas from the amount of yarn that I have. So I think I'm gonna knit the Ursa and then figure out what to do with the rest. So definitely stay tuned for the next podcast, because I hope by then I'll have, the Ursa should be done by then, and I should have something else casted on with the other chunky yarn, which I'm gonna give myself some time to do because, you know, it's a little upsetting. So that is that. And then the final thing I want to talk about acquisitions, let me get out my handy dandy iPad, because I bought some patterns. Sari Nordlund was having a sale, a pretty good sale, and I was so sad because I wanted to buy them, obviously, and I kept trying to buy them, and it kept refunding it on PayPal, and I was like, don't refund it, give me it. And it was an issue with PayPal, and Sari Nordlund figured it out, and she extended the sale, which was super gracious of her. And so I got even more patterns than I expected to get, because I tried to buy them 3 times, and at that point I was like, give them to me. And so I bought a lot. So I'll put the photos here so you can see what I'm talking about. But I got the Muru pullover, which I love. I love the colors that Sari knitted it in, and the test knitters did a whole bunch of different colors, and it just looks so good. And so I'm really excited to figure out the colors I want. I think I am gonna go for a similar colorway or color story as Sari, a neutral kind of cream, and then, you know, a statement like chartreusey brown color. I love that. It is knitted, let's see if I can pull up the pattern. I believe it's a worsted weight yarn. It's gonna take forever to load. Yeah, instead of doing it here, I'll just put the information on the screen for you all. So I got that. I also got, oh, my thing's kind of freaking out. I got the pan cardigan sweater. The pan cardigan pattern. I love the way this one looks. It looks so good. I love that it's cropped. I love the colors that she knitted in. It is brioche, so that'll be a good time to learn brioche, is knitting a brioche cardigan. I think it's great. I'm really excited to knit it. Then I also got the Willa cardigan, which is like an all over cable cardigan that I absolutely love. I think it's so cute. And I'm not gonna knit this until I am home in the States, because I have a Lions brand fisherman wool yarn. I have a whole bunch of it from making golf club covers. And I think it'll be perfect for this. It's worsted, it's very, very rustic, like 100% kind of scratchy wool, which I think is like perfect for a cabled cardigan like this. And they have a cream color that will just work perfectly. And it's like $7 or $13 per skein, or it's like a ball, but it's really long and skinny. I don't know. It's massive. It has like 800 meters in it. So I think it'll definitely be a bang for my buck cardigan. And I'm excited to have it for next fall, winter. So that's a way in the future one. Then I also got the Wayne pullover, which is fitting because my partner and I just watched Batman, and there's a new Batman coming out. So I love the way this looks. Again, all over cable. I want to build my cable wardrobe, apparently. There was a test, or someone who knit this pattern on Ravelry that shared it, and I loved the modifications that they made to it. I can't remember their name, anything like that. I'll definitely put the picture in here so you can see, but essentially they made it, they knit it oversized and very cropped, and it looks incredible. So I'm gonna try to do something like that. And I think that's it for the garments that I got. And then I also got some socks. I got the Monday Sunday socks, which are a cabled sock that I think is beautiful. And the reason why is from my road trip across the United States experience, I got this Malabrigo yarn. It is in the color Sandbank 131. It's 440 yards. It's 100% superwash merino. It's this really beautiful dusty purple. It's not going to pick up very well, but I have this, and again, I didn't want to make socks out of it because it's just so precious to me. But I don't know if I'm going to make another bralette out of it. I don't know. So I figured I might as well get some socks patterns. Yeah, that's right. And I also have, you're not going to be able to see this at all, but I got Madeline Tosh is like called like a Pegasus tail, and it has this beautiful light periwinkle, like purple and pink and yellow tones throughout it. It's beautiful. It's like 50 yards. It was like 10 grams or something. I'm not certain. But it was like these little tiny skeins, and they were so cute. And they were discontinued, and they were like $6 a little Pegasus tail. So I was like, yeah, definitely give that to me. I got 2 of them, but I left one of them at home. Unfortunately, I'm pretty certain it's hanging on the inside of my closet door. I need to figure that out with my family. I need to get that not hanging for 9 months. So I got that sock pattern. Then I also got the Midsummer Dancer socks because, oh my God, they're so cute with the ruffle and the eyelets. They're so cute. Maybe that yarn will make those socks. I don't know. Then I also got the Ballad socks, which I think I got because it's knit out of Malabrigo sock yarn. So it would make the most sense to use the Malabrigo for these socks, because I've never used the yarn that is recommended in the pattern. I've done that once, and I think it would make my life probably a bit easier. But yeah, it's just a lace sock pattern that's really beautiful. So I'm trying to get sort of my spring summer socks in order, if you can see that. And yep, those are all the patterns that I got. Quite a few. So I feel kind of badly buying another pattern, i.e. the Ursa, but I think I need it. So those are all my acquisitions, yarns, and patterns. I'm very excited about it. And so the rest of the podcast, I'm just going to talk about what's to come next and some life updates. If you're not interested in that, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it. I hope you stick around, perhaps consider subscribing, leaving me a comment about any recommendations you have for lengthening something that's knit bottom up, and then maybe your thoughts about the patterns I purchased and maybe what to do with all of the bulky weight yarn that I have. I have enough that when I was looking on Ravelry for patterns, it was like, knit this blanket. And I was like, oh my God, I can't. So what's to come next? My partner and I are scheduled to go on a trip to Stockholm, Sweden, which I am so excited about. I have never been. I've barely spent any time in Western Europe, to be frank. And so I was thinking of a joke I could make with the comment, to be frank, but it didn't pan out. That was that face. Yeah, we're going to Stockholm for 3 days. I'm so excited. We booked a really cute hotel, and I was looking at yarn stores near the hotel, and there are like 5. 3 of them look excellent. So I'm so excited. I'm definitely gonna try. I'm really nervous about filming in public. It's not really for me, but I do think I'm gonna try to get some shots of inside the store. I'm obviously gonna buy yarn. I'm definitely gonna buy yarn for my mother's shawl so I can get working on it, because I really wanna take my time on it, because it's gonna take a really long time. And I want to get some yarn for the projects that I would like to make, the garments, particularly my pajama set by Jessie Mae. I really want to get yarn for. I think I want to get yarn for another Laulu shawl. Yeah, I actually wrote it down in my notebook. And I'll tell you the stores I'm thinking about going to. I want to get yarn for the pan cardigan, the Calla shawl from my mom, PJ set, and maybe another Jessie Mae crop if I can find like a cute indie dyed yarn situation. The stores that are near me while I'll be there, I don't speak Swedish. Okay, Makery 14, Knit for You, Clara Teague and Garn, Litet Nystan, Fingerborg, and Garn and Saibahor. I'll put them, where I put them. I definitely want to go to Makery 14 and Fingerborg, and also Knit For You had some really beautiful options, particularly for my mother's shawl, which I'm very comfortable with spending a lot of money on because she deserves it, so to speak. And yeah, so that's really exciting. Now, what may put a damper on that is that I had a meeting with a professor here in Belgrade, and we met with her. And then I was talking to my partner and I was like, isn't it crazy? I mean, we're very, very safe. I'm like a huge germaphobe, so we live our life safely in terms of COVID. But I was like, isn't it crazy? I mean, we traveled across an ocean. I went on a college campus for the whole year. We go out to restaurants carefully, but we go out to restaurants. We are triple vaxxed. Because obviously I've had health things in the past that make me a little bit more susceptible. So I just, want to be safe. And he needed to in order to be traveling all around Europe and was going to do it anyway, whatever. I don't need to justify my vaccines to anyone. But I was like, isn't it crazy that we just neither of us have had COVID, neither. And we come from Arizona and Texas, which are not good for COVID things necessarily. My whole family just had COVID. Thankfully, they are all healthy and doing well. Thankfully, that was a little nerve-wracking. But I tell him that, after the meeting that night, and then, 30 minutes later, I got an email, and the professor was like, I tested positive for COVID, and I was like, oh. So, we are staying in the house. We have not left. Funny story. We had no groceries, so I ordered kind of like an Instacart situation. It's called Glovo, and we wanted some produce, and the prices were listed per kilogram, and I was like, okay, yeah, because they're not going to list it for one orange, So I was like, okay, give me 5 mandarins, 4 potatoes, and 3 onions. So we got 5 kilograms of mandarins, 4 kilograms of potatoes, and 3 kilograms of onions. I'll put a photo because I'm not kidding. I spent $20 on produce, which I have not done since I've been in the States. So that was exciting. We will not get scurvy, that's for certain. But we're staying in. I'm going to take a test tomorrow just to see. And then we're waiting 4 to 5 days to take the test so that it's more accurate because, it takes some time in your body to actually show that you have COVID. So no, we did not take a test immediately when she sent that email because it might show a false negative, which isn't helpful for anybody. And then based on the test, we're either going to postpone our trip to Sweden, and if it's negative, we're going to go. Neither of us have any symptoms or feel sick whatsoever, which is wonderful, but I'm not oblivious to the fact that you can have no symptoms and still have COVID. So we definitely want to make sure that we are firmly negative before we go and travel abroad, because otherwise that's not right. That's not right. And if we have to postpone, we have to postpone. And we can do that until the beginning of March. So we just need to, the timing actually works out because like I said, I met with her probably 3 days ago. And so tomorrow will actually be the best time to take a test. 5 days after is at least what the Mayo Clinic says is the best thing to do. And I trust the Mayo Clinic. They saved my life. So I trust them, generally speaking. And then if possible, we'll try to get another test before in the event of a negative or a positive, because it's important that we are firmly negative before we travel. We have some home tests. I would rather not go to a testing place here because I think my odds of catching COVID if I don't have it are a bit higher. So we'll be using our at-home antigen tests, and I think we'll be good. I honestly think we'll test negative. And like I said, if we don't, we'll stay inside, we'll postpone, no big deal. So yeah, so don't worry, we're traveling safely. We will not get anybody else sick if we're sick, but that is sort of the life update. So we're taking it easy, we're hanging out. I'm gonna actually go wake him up right now, make some oatmeal with chocolate and peanut butter, because that's what I want. I made pancakes yesterday. This is information you really don't need. And I'm gonna knit. I think I'm gonna knit a little bit on my shawl just to get the eyelets done so I can just get to the garter part, have that set up. I might cast on an Ursa because I'm feeling Castiani. Yeah, and that's that. So again, if you stayed all the way to the end, thank you so much. Really from the bottom of my heart, I'm so glad to have everyone that is here. You are all welcome, and you're all so kind and sweet, and I hope that you have a really happy day, a very wonderful month. Until I see you next, I hope that you all stay healthy, and I hope that you keep the peace, if you know what I mean. So have a good rest of the day, week, month, and again, thank you so much for being here. Bye-bye.